President, please be seated. The court is back in session. I now hand over to the defense team for Mr. Nguyen Chia to put the question to the civil party in question. You may proceed. Counsel Sonarun. Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, Your Honors, and good morning to everyone. My name is Sonarun. I have a few questions to put to the civil party. I am the defense lawyer for Mr. Nguyen Chia. I only have a few questions for you, and then I will hand over to my colleague. And my colleague does not have too many questions either. We will need approximately 1 hour. My question to you is as follows. In the record of interview, document D 246/3 that you actually received from the civil party lawyer, I would like to base my question on this record of interview. During the interview with the investigators of the OCIJ, there was one question to you, and the question reads, did you ever see the execution of people at Raj Kraul? And in your response, you said, yes, you did. At one time, one prisoner was taken to the communal dining hall of the cooperatives, and Angka told the people who were present there that the man who was being arrested was trying to flee the cooperatives. And then after they introduced this man to the crowd, and then the man was beheaded. And then you said that you did not see the beheading of the man, but you only saw the head of the corpse fell down on the ground. So you said that you saw the beheaded head on the ground. So did you see the beheaded head falling down, or you merely saw the head was on the ground? The President witness, the civil party rather, please hold on. The civil party lawyer, you may proceed. Counsel for the civil party. I do not object to this question, Mr. President, but I would like the counsel to be more precise in relation to the page number or the year and relevant year and number. Counsel Sonarun, thank you. It is document D 246/3, relevant year and in Khmer. Rather in English 00379146, French 002456. The President, Mr. Prosecutor, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. You have noticed that in the questions that were put by the civil party lawyers and by the prosecutors, this aspect has not really been covered except for a few questions, and especially because the civil party had said that her husband, who had been an officer, had been identified as such, and this is why he ended up, or both of them ended up in this detention center. All other details were silenced because we are now in case 002/1, so therefore I am questioning the defense's reasons to return to these details, which of course are interesting, but do not seem to us to involve directly the first trial. So the questions on the center should be more limited and should be limited to the way the different Lon soldiers were treated if they were identified as such, and we should not go beyond this.
Counsel Sunarun, I would like to respond to Mr. Prosecutor. My question relates to the record of interview with the questions by the investigator of the OCIJ and the civil party in question. So actually, the statement was there already. I simply asked for clarification by the civil party since she is here. The President. The civil party is directed to respond to the question asked by the defense lawyer for Mr. Nguyen Chia. Civil party, thank you. In Tribunal prison, it was the last re-education center. I was imprisoned there. Whenever there was anyone who attempted to escape the center, then they would call a rally, and during that rally they would present this person. So normally we met at the dining hall, communal dining hall, but before we finished our lunch, they presented to us the prisoners who were captured, and they would tell the people over there that this person was trying to escape, so the party would smash this kinds of person. The party would not keep this person. Then at that time, everyone was aware that the person who was presented to us was the one to be beheaded or executed. So we were very worried. And then when we were talking to each other, and then we heard the scream. And then actually when we turned back, we saw that the person was beheaded. And we saw the beheaded head on the ground. Actually, the situation at the Tribunal prison was very horrible, and we could see that horrible scene, and people over there live in a very miserable situation. And lawyer, I have to interrupt you. I'm sorry. I do not want to hear too much of the detail, but I would like to ask you very specifically whether or not you saw the prisoner head was beheaded, and then you use the word you did not see the moment they decapitated him, but you saw the head of the prisoner being dropped on the ground. So I just would like to know whether or not you saw the beheading activity, or you simply saw the head of the prisoner on the ground. That's what I saw. I actually saw that the prisoner was about to be decapitated, but I did not see the actual decapitation because I was afraid I dare not look at it. No. I would like to move on, counsel. I would like to move on to the next questions. It is on the same page of the same document. The questions by the judge that, did you know where they dispose of the corpse? And then there was another question after that. There were a few Khmer Rouge soldiers who were involved in the execution of the prisoner, and those soldiers were then accused of something else, and then those soldiers were also imprisoned and executed later on. From 1975 to 1976, the Khmer Rouge soldier killed some 100,000 prisoners, and I believe that this figure was correct. And then you said to the co-investigating judges that you think that the figure was correct. And what did you base your statement on, or your belief on, that within a period of 1 year span, there were up to 100 prisoners killed? 100,000 rather. Response: it was my belief at the time, and I thought that the figure was correct. We work every 3 days, and then we have to stop for about 2 days. So on every 2 days basis, they brought up to 100 to 200 people for execution, and they started killing not only in 1976, but it started in 1975. So if you do a little of the calculation of 365 days per year, and then if they killed approximately 100 to 200 prisoners every 2 or 3 days, then you can imagine how many of prisoners would have been killed during that period. And the reason why I believe, because every day they send people from different cooperatives, and it was very crowded, and we see people being frog marched, and we saw them only 1 or 2 days, and then those people disappeared. So I thought that they must have been killed. And we heard from people, particularly those who were the soldiers, those who frog marched those prisoners out, and those people were the one who knew this story, and they were themselves in prison as well, and some of them returned, and they told that they brought those prisoners to be executed. Even at night we could smell the odor, the odor of the dead bodies that were being perished. Question. From 1975 through 1979, you were evacuated from one place to another, according to your statement to the Office of Co-Investigating Judges. You were evacuated from Phnom Penh first, and then the Khmer Rouge soldiers located you in certain places, and there were actually different phases of evacuation. During the evacuation period, did you ever hear the instruction, the direct instruction from the leaders? For example, did you simply go along with the crowds whenever you had to move, or you heard the direct instruction from the leaders? Response. Yeah, there were several phases. I left Phnom Penh, and then I went to other places. And of course, it was not my desire to move from one place to another, but it was the order or the instruction from the superiors. I were request to move from Kandal province to Kampong Chnang and Posat province, and then I were imprisoned in different prison centers as well, including Trai Kral, Bang Knal, and other places. So it was the direction from the leaders. It was not my desire to move around across the country. Question. My question really is, did you hear the instruction directly from the leader, or you simply heard from members of the crowds who told you that we had to move, and then you move along with them? I heard from the leaders, particularly the unit chief supervising the crowd, and they were members of the armies, and they were the unit chief in charge of the prison with which we were imprisoned. Question. You told the court earlier that you were in the prison. Were you in the prison the entire period when you left Phnom Penh, or you were simply among the crowd and you consider this as being imprisoned? Response. From mid-1976, when I was in Posat province, I was being imprisoned all the time. At that time, we could not live in our house. We had to live in the prison camp with others. There were ordinary prisons and there were dark prisons. And we had to live in the prison camp for a long period of time with many prisoners. Question. When you were being imprisoned, as you put it, did the Khmer Rouge soldiers at that time call it prison, or it was called something else at that time? Response. No, at that time it was not called prison as such, but it was called the Re-Education Center. Question. When you saw the supervisor within your team, what was the dress code of the supervisor? Were they in military uniform or they were in any particular uniform? Response. At the times, they wore black clothes and they were all armed. So they were armed at all times, even during lunch or meal times. They were also armed. Whenever they frog march other people out, they were also armed. Question. When you were instructed to go out to do the work, for example, in the field or so, did you notice the language they use? Were they the Khmer? Did they use Khmer language or ethnic minority? Did you notice the action of those supervisors or soldiers? Were they Cambodian, the mainstream Cambodian, or people from minority groups? Response. Well, when they gave us instruction to go to work, their action were purely Cambodian, and if I recognize the action correctly, they were people from Posat province. Question. In the same document, I move on to another question. Just now I asked you concerning your evacuation in several phases during the entire period of the Democratic Cambodia. During this period, did you ever see any foreigners, whether they be the technicians or military personnel or anybody during this period? Response. No, I never met any foreigners during that period. Question. This is going to be my last question. In document D 246/3, Khmer ERN 0037 3256, English 00379164, French 00422458. This is the question, the last question by the co-investigating judges. The question reads, as my apology, let me check this again. So the question reads, as a civil party, what are your expectations? And in your response, you stated, quote, I want justice for those innocent people who died during the Khmer Rouge regime. I want the Khmer Rouge senior leaders to be held responsible and punished for the offenses they committed. I would also like to find those who supported, who were at the back of the Khmer Rouge regime, both foreigners and Cambodians. End quote. So on this particular portion of the interview, particularly your statement to the question by the investigating judges, why did you make such an appeal before the Office of Co-Investigating Judges? Why did you want to bring to justice those who supported the Khmer Rouge regime, both national and foreigners? What do you mean by foreigners here? Why did you appeal to have those foreigners and Cambodian national who supported the Khmer Rouge to justice? Response. Because I was suggesting that the order that was carried out during the Khmer Rouge period were in concerted and systematic structure. So it was not the decision of the unit chief or the cooperative chief also. There must be people who were behind the Khmer Rouge. I know that there were people who were backing up the Khmer Rouge because I saw fleet of trucks transporting items. And then those trucks, as far as I knew, were the support of China. And those personnel who were in the fleet of trucks carrying goods also wore different uniforms. So we had to find out who they were. And we wanted this court to find out who were behind, who were supporting. We know, I myself am convinced that this court will definitely find justice for the victims of the Khmer Rouge regime, and particularly those who are still surviving, but they have sustained a lot of pain and suffering to date. Counsel, thank you. Thank you, civil party. On behalf of the defense team for Mr. Nguyen Chia, I thank you for responding to my question. I would like to now hand over to my colleague to put more questions to you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, everyone in and around the courtroom, and especially good morning to you, Mrs. Lei Boni. Thank you for being here with us today. As Mr. Sonarun indicated, I will have about 30 more minutes of questions, and my first questions will relate to the situation in Phnom Penh before April 1975. You have already testified about the periods leading up to April 1975, and you have described it as a chaotic situation. And you have also spoken about the huge influx of people in Phnom Penh. Can you tell us a little bit more about this huge influx of people in Phnom Penh? Did you actually see those people as they were entering Phnom Penh before April 1975?
Response. Thank you. I saw this in person when the war was being brought closer to Phnom Penh. We could see people moving in with their family members, and it was crowded. Cambodia hotel was not yet complete. The construction was not complete, and it was already crowded with refugees, displaced people who took refuge at the vicinity. The price of food increased, and we received some American aids, and these supplies aid could be then sold by the soldiers.
Thank you. And you described that these people stayed around the Cambodiana hotel. Were there other places in the city where these refugees assembled?
Response. I saw people in other places. I only indicated with reference to that particular location. For example, a lot of people had to remain in other area, like rented rooms and places where they could stay.
And as far as you could tell, did these refugees all have shelter, or did some of them have to stay out on the streets or in the fields?
Response. It is difficult to describe because, for example, for a big house we had, when the price increased, we had to split the space in the house, setting up some partitions so that it could be rented to refugees, people who would come to the city to take refuge for some income.
So some refugees were housed in other houses in Phnom Penh, but did you also see refugees camped on the streets or in shacks, for example?
Response. During the time when Phnom Penh was about to fall, I did not go out a lot because I was about to give birth to my baby, and the bombings were heard dropping all across the surrounding area, so I was so scared to leave my home.
And as far as you could tell, these refugees that had moved into Phnom Penh, did they have enough food, or was that difficult?
Response. It was difficult when it comes to food because Phnom Penh was not expected to accommodate all this great influx of people from the different places of the country. So there were a lot of difficulties looking for food, earning incomes, for example. So it's really difficult.
You have also stated yesterday that your family did not have a problem with rice because soldiers were given enough rice. I would like you to clarify a bit for us. Did the government give you, in fact, actual rice, or did they give you enough money to buy rice?
Response. At that time, my husband was a soldier, so he received some rice from his unit.
And also yesterday you testified that your family had problems getting other foodstuffs other than rice. Could you give us some examples? What sort of foodstuffs couldn't you get?
Response. In my family, we did not have problem with food supply because we dug a small hiding place where we could keep all these food stuff, including fish paste, the salt, and other kitchen needs. So we did not have a lot of problem with this.
And the following questions are about the citizens of Phnom Penh that were not refugees and that were not soldiers. So I'm speaking about the normal citizens of Phnom Penh. Did you witness their situation? Did they have problems acquiring foodstuffs?
Response. Yes, they did, as already indicated, although I did not see this in person, as I had been about to give birth to my baby. I remained in the house, but I heard from my neighbors who said that people had a lot of difficulties with food.
And do you know if the normal citizens of Phnom Penh had access to adequate health care? Were there enough doctors, enough hospitals, and enough medicine?
Response. It is not fair to say that there was shortcoming of medical care because there were enough hospitals open for offering medical care to people who needed such care.
And was it difficult to get to those hospitals to receive that health care?
Response. I do not know how to respond to this because I did not experience being admitted to any of the hospitals that time, so I can't say about this.
Thank you for that answer. You have told us that you had been told that you had to leave the city because of American bombardments that might be coming. At that time, in 1975, did you believe that? Did you believe that the Americans might be bombing Phnom Penh?
Response. At that time, I was afraid because the message was convincing already. A few days or months before that, we already noted that bombs were dropped. So when having heard that the city would be bombed, we were terrified already, so we had to move.
Thank you. You have stated that you were evacuated from Phnom Penh, and then after some travels, you arrived in An Chiang Loi village, which is in the Phuc Rusay commune in the Ksak Kandal district. And my apologies for the pronunciation. And you have stated that over there was enough food. Could you elaborate a little bit on that for us?
Response. In An Chang Le of Ksak Kandal district, I could say that the food was decent because by every evening we would be asked to get some fish, and we could also find some rice. After leaving Phnom Penh, we left with silk fabrics or other clothing, and we could have them traded for rice, and we also could trade these items for some kind of fish or vegetables. So I could say that when we evacuated to the rural area during these early days with this food, I could say it was decent.
And a bit later, after some more travels, you arrive in Koh Chum Pagoda. And you have stated that you were given the opportunity to choose a cooperative that you wanted to go to. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Who provided you with the opportunity to choose a cooperative?
Response. At Koh Chum Pagoda, people were unloaded from the ox carts, or people were stopped at that location where ox carts would be waiting for us, and we were allowed to go to any direction we preferred, or if we would like to remain at the Koh Chum cooperative, then we would be allowed to do so. And our family members who were from Posat said that we should not move elsewhere because it doesn't matter where we went, we would end up being farmers doing farming, so we might as well wish to remain in the location.
And just to remind us, can you tell us from when to when you stayed in the Koh Chum Pagoda? Could you give us an estimate of the year and the months?
Response. At Koh Chum Pagoda or Koh Chung Cooperative, I was there during the rainy season after after the Khmer New Year. It was in 1976. So after the Khmer New Year, I had then been transferred to the tempering center all along.
And you have also stated that during your time at the Kochum Pagoda, you never saw people die of starvation. Is that correct?
Response. Yes, it is. I never saw people die of starvation, although the rice was of short supplies at the cooperative. We could make use of the rice we brought along with us, and we could exchange we could ask people who fed the pigs, with food, to exchange the food for human beings.
Thank you. And then, when you came back to Phnom Penh, you stated to the investigators, when you came back to Phnom Penh, you lost your house. Could you tell us how you lost your house?
Response. Upon returning to Phnom Penh, it was in 1980, because by 1979 I had still been in Posat. I came to Phnom Penh in 1980, and I could not recognize my house anymore because it used to be located across from Long Ngat Hospital, and it was reduced to just an empty plot of land.
Just so I understand, was your house reduced to an empty plot of land, or was the area in front of your house reduced to an empty plot of land?
The President, Subhapati, could you please make sure that the mic is activated before you proceed with your response? Response. My house was across from Long Ngat Hospital, but the current residence is in Tla area. It is far from the previous home, which was in Sangkat number 4.
That makes sense. You have stated to the investigators of the OCIJ that when you came back to your house, there were officials of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs living in your house. How did you find out about this?
Response. I learned about this after asking other people about who stayed in the house. No, actually, these people stay at my aunt's house, not at my former home. The place was still vacant.
And do you know who these officials of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs were? Were they Cambodians or were they Vietnamese by any chance?
The President, the civil party, could you please hold on, and counsel for the civil parties, you're on your feet, you may proceed. Counsel Mochsavanari, I take issue with the current questions put to the civil party because it is not within the scope of the matter before us, as the question is relevant to the event after 1980s.
I would submit, Mr. President, that it is relevant. The civil party has been asked what happened to her house. This is directly related to the evacuation of Phnom Penh in 1975. That's when she was made to leave her house, according to her testimony. It matters whether she got her house back or not, and it matters why she did not get her house back. It seems from her statements to the OCIJ that she did not get her house back because the current government, or at least the government that was in place in 1980, did not return the house. My client could not be held responsible for such a fact. So it would be a mitigating factor. We need to explore if the current government in 1980 took the house of the civil party and whether or not they have returned it. So I would submit that this question is relevant.
The President, Madam Civil Party, you may respond to the question, but please be more precise on the subject matter before us. Now, make sure that you are referring to your home or your aunt's home. So we believe that your response was already clear to us, but Council may wish to hear from you again whether you are referring to your home or your aunt's home again. Response: my home was reduced to an empty plot of land. The officers only came to live at my aunt's home, and these people were officials from the Foreign Ministry.
So your statement to the investigators of the co-investigating judges on this issue is incorrect. Is that how I should understand your position? Maybe I will, for transparency purposes, read out to you what you have stated to the investigators. And it is the document that we've been speaking about all along. It is document number D246/3, and the Khmer ERN is 00373-255, and the English ERN is 00379-164. The question was, what happened to your house in Phnom Penh? And your answer was, I lost my house. I returned to see my house in 1980, but officials of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs were living in my house. End of quote. So my question again is, this portion of your statement to the OCIJ is incorrect. Is that fair to say?
Response: I came to see that my house was or belonged to others already, because at the beginning when I came back, the plot of land that used to belong to me was reduced to an empty plot of land. But later on, people built a home on that empty land. But then next to my the home was my aunt's house that occupied by officials.
Thank you for that explanation, and it's not very important as such, but I will repeat the question. Is it fair to say that your statement that officials of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs were living in your house was incorrect?
Response. I already stated that my home was already reduced to an empty plot of land, and the house that was adjacent to my former home was my aunt's house, and it was occupied by the officials from the foreign ministry, because there was no home, there was no my home again after when I went back to see it.
Thank you. That clarifies things. And just to be clear, you did sign this statement that you delivered before the investigators of the co-investigating judges, and you confirmed its accuracy in the courtroom today. Is that correct?
Response. I did confirm that, and I did state this in person before the investigating judges.
Thank you. I have no further questions, and I thank you for coming here, and on behalf of the Nuntia defense team, I wish you a safe trip back after my colleagues for the other defense teams have finished their questioning. Thank you.
The President, thank you, Counsel. We would like now to proceed to Counsel for Mr. Ieng Sari to put questions to the civil party if they wish to do so. Counsel Ang Adam. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Your Honors, and good morning, Madame Lai Boni. I am Ang Adam with my colleague, Mr. Michael Kanavas, who is sitting at the back. We are representing Mr. Ieng Sari. We do not have any questions to put to you. Nonetheless, on behalf of Mr. Ieng Sari, we would like to thank you very much for taking the stand to give your testimonies, and we wish you all the best. Thank you, Mr. President. The President, next we would like to hand over to counsels for Mr. Khieu Samphan to put questions to the civil party if they wish to do so. Counsel Kung Samon. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Your Honors. On behalf of Mr. Khieu Samphan, we do not have any questions to put to the civil party. I thank you. The President, thank you. As indicated already, finally, as a civil party, Madame Lai Boni, you have the right to express your suffering and the injuries you have suffered, if you would wish to do so. Civil Party. I thank you, Mr. President, and Your Honors. As a civil party, I am pleased, and this is the best opportunity after 30 years I have been living with all the suffering. And because of the court, I am here to express my sufferings, my suffering. After 1975, April 1975, I have been living in great misery and grief because I had to leave my home, left behind my family members and property, and I had to walk a long distance. Although I had just delivered my baby, I had been saving this happiness, but all was destroyed by the Khmer Rouge. We had to travel to a destination where my husband and kids were all killed. I have kept this suffering in my heart for a very long period of time, and I would like to thank you, the Chamber, very much for giving me this opportunity to speak it out. And I have been detained in several detention facilities. I was treated even worse than the way the animals were treated. I do not know why my whole family, including me, were detained and confined in the detention facilities, although we did not commit any wrongdoing. A lot of people were badly treated. They were tortured. They were forced to give confession when their toenails would be pulled, and also some would be plunged into the full jar of water. And on one occasion, a woman stated very firmly that she was happier to die rather than living this living hell. And she had been beaten. People were beaten even at work, even when eating and sleeping. People who were too hungry had to pick some leaves to substitute the very meager food, but then when they got diarrhea of eating the leaves, they were accused of committing the mistake, and they were all beaten, and many were shackled. They were forced to work, and they would be tortured if they were seen stealing any food. And later on, after 100,000 people were executed, then a lot of us had to be sent to work in Bangkul, District 23, to do farming. And we transplanted about 100 hectares of paddy fields. We had to work until 12 p.m. And at 3 a.m. we were again asked to get up to work. At that time, we had to use the empty sack to cover our body to keep us from getting cold. The President, Civil Party, could you please be slower, because if you speak rather fast, we are afraid your message would not be properly rendered into the other languages, for example, the French and English, because here before us we have our colleagues who are speaking French and English. So please slow down and make sure that you keep good pace when making your statement. You may proceed. And also wait until you see the red light.
I will do that. I was a bit too excited about this, and the situation was miserable, and the food ration was very small. We had only a few $1 pottery cruel, and we were very exhausted every day. We had to go to the field because we were fear for our life. And when we went to the field, we had to carry the seedlings along with us. We had to hold a big bunch of seedlings to us, and if we drop any seedling along the ways, they would beat us along the way, all the way to the rice paddy. So we had to go down to the field on a daily basis, and we had to transplant rice, and we were given certain quota, certain areas of land to transplant the seedlings. We have to meet the quotas, otherwise we would be sanctioned, we would be punished. So we had to comply with the direction, but the food ration was minimal indeed. That was the life was like at that situation. It was very, very miserable. And later on, I and my team could transplant 100 hectares of rice field. When they frog marched us from Tukul prison to Bangkul re-education center, there were many members in our team disappeared. Then we noticed people who disappear among our teams. We noticed that they must have been executed. And then we also noted that those who were given under the control of the Northwest Zone Authority were also killed. So once we have transplanted 100 hectares of rice, then we hand over to the cooperative. And after that, they frog march us to Bangkul re-education camp. When we live over there, it was the most miserable place I had ever endured in my life. It was a very terrible situation. Those who committed a small, minor, negligible wrongdoing were shackled and punished. And in terms of food ration, it was very minimal. And if we made any minor mistakes, we would be beaten all the times. And those who were imprisoned in the dark prison, they did not have to be executed, but they would die there because they had to live in a small and stuffy cell under the zinc roof and in the middle of the rice field. So it was very hot. So those who were imprisoned in the dark prison, their fate would be unfortunate. In other words, they would not be able to return. And when I was over there, I was starving. I ate everything, including the snail. And snail, I ate it raw. It was not cooked at all. We were too starving at that time. We could eat anything. We did not care about the eating etiquette or anything. We just simply ate anything that could fill our stomach. And every mornings we were escorted, we were frog marched to the workplace, and then during the lunch times we would be frog marched back to our dining halls, and then we only ate for a short period of times, then we would be frog marched again to transplant. And I was wondering to myself why these people were so cruel. We were made to work very hard, and we were given only a short period of time to sleep. Even if we had to go to work a bit early in the morning, but we had to be waken up at around 3 o'clock in the morning, and we had to sit there doing nothing. And why didn't they allow us to have enough sleep? And when my area, when one of the cooperatives were flooded, we were asked to build a dam in order to prevent the water from flooding the rice paddy. And then they over there told us that people over there, particularly the cooperative members, thought that we were all the thieves and the deceiver coming to their cooperative. So we were very resented with their degrading comments and treatment over there. So we had to have them, and after building the dam, we also went to other places to have, particularly to have prevent the waters from coming in the rice field. And in the cooperatives, there were cooperative members and those who were working in the re-education camp. For those who work at the education camp, they had to work, but they could return to their place, and they had something to eat. But for us, we had to work, and we had to carry water and us. As for cooperatives, particularly those who were in the cooperatives, they had some things to eat. For me and my teams who were the newcomers, we had to work all day long. And only when we came to the dining hall, we were given food. But at the time, many people were beaten as well. And we live in a big crowd, and we were considered prisoners. And when people put everything together in the hall, some items were missing, and then we were beaten if we were making any noise or we were discussing. So we were beaten every day and every time. One day we were told to build the dam, and it was a very hard work. And we had to work under the rain and at night. And in the Lesab areas, we had to try to prevent the water from coming into the rice fields. That was our responsibility. So we had to stay in water the whole day. We were very cold. It was very cold, and we were starving as well. And at one time we prayed that the dam was broken. And one day, one of the dams were broken by the water current, and then many people died. But during that time, when the water was coming, they had to try to dig up the potatoes. And we were very hungry. Those who were coming to this place were very hungry. So we had to take this opportunity to find the potatoes, and then we ate them raw. But those who were found picking the potatoes were shackled and imprisoned. And during the night time at the sleeping place, we had to sleep in the hall, and we sleep everywhere, and then we could find at the times where it was the flooding seasons, and then there was earthworm everywhere, and we had to sleep along with the earthworms. And every morning we could see our feet was among the earthworms over there. So we were like living in the house. We do not understand why they treated us inhumanely, why they treat us in such a very degrading situation. I did not know they were also human beings. Why did they have to do that to us? And the black clothed soldiers had to evacuate us from one place to another, and we were wondering when we will eventually settle down, because we were kept moving from one place to another. And my relatives, my siblings, 3 of them died. Only me survived this regime. So I did not dare resist their orders. I had to move along with others whenever we were made to move from one place to another. And then eventually I came to Tropang Chong commune. I came to that place. Finally, I would like to... Actually, it's my suggestion after I have described the suffering I have endured. We were treated like animals. We were treated very inhumanely. So I would like to have a few suggestions to the court. I made it clear in my victim information form. I would like to ask the court to search for the truth. I would like to know who were behind these heinous crimes. I would like to know whether or not there were foreigners who were behind these heinous crimes, because I do not understand why a human being would do these kinds of inhumane acts. So I hope that the court will be able to find justice for us. I know that the court did not conduct any investigation into the Kuktkol prison, but I think there are many other prisons in the country that the court may also consider. So I would like to urge that the court consider investigating and finding the truth. And I would also like the court to recognize the day of we to pronounce the remembrance for those who died in Kuktkol prison, so that those who died during the regimes would feel a peace and they would rest in peace after that. Thank you, Your Honor.
The President, thank you, Madam Sawapati. You already expressed your suffering, and your testimony now comes to a conclusion. You are now excused. Court officer is now instructed to assist her along with the vessel unit to make sure that Madam Sawapati is home safe and sound. Madam Lai Boni, you may leave now, please. And at the same time, the Chamber wishes to inform the parties to the proceedings that it is now appropriate time for lunch adjournment. The Chamber will adjourn, and the next sessions will commence by 1:30 p.m. where the Chamber will be hearing the testimony of TCW 362, questions to be put first by the prosecutors. And at the same time, the Chamber will also give the opportunity to counsels or parties to the proceeding who would like to make any observation concerning the statement made by Madame Lai Boni a moment ago. Counsel for Mr. Nuon Chea, you may now proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our client, Mr. Nuon Chea, would like to follow this afternoon's proceedings from his holding cell, as he is suffering from a headache, back pain, and a lack of concentration. And we have submitted the waiver.
The President of the Chamber notes the request by Mr. Nuon Chea through his counsel, in which he has requested that he be allowed to observe the proceedings from his holding cell due to his health concern. He indicated that he cannot remain seated for a long period of time, and that he be allowed to retire to his holding cell. Counsel already made it clear that his waiver that given thumbprint and signed by Mr. Nuon Chea will be submitted to the Chamber in due course. In light of that, the Chamber therefore grants such a request, and that Mr. Nuon Chea is now allowed to observe the proceedings from his holding cell. With that, Mr. Nuon Chea has expressly waived his right to participate directly in the courtroom, and the Chamber would like to ask that counsels for Mr. Nuon Chea produce this waiver given thumbprint and signed by Mr. Nuon Chea in due course. AV unit is now instructed to ensure that the AV is well connected to Mr. Nuon Chea's holding cell, so that he can observe the proceedings from there for the remainder of the day. Security personnel are now instructed to bring Mr. Nuon Chea and Khieu Samphan to their respective holding cell and have Mr. Khieu Samphan returned to the courtroom by 1:30 p.m. The court is adjourned.
សូមអញ្ជើញក្រោកឈរ